Hello, everybody. My name is Lawton and welcome to Trading the Close. Now, you might be wondering to yourself, where is Drew? Why is Drew suddenly slightly more handsome and a little more Asian? Well, don't worry, Drew's not gone for good, but he's having a baby. So he asked us to step in for him. So you might see myself, Ben, Gareth kind of switch off and cover Trading the Close for the next couple of weeks. I hope you guys don't mind, but all the best wishes for Drew, that endeavor. But guys, what an awesome day in the stock market today. We saw the S&P make new all-time highs yesterday, try to make new all-time highs today, and then be unable to breach that mark. But let's head straight into the charts here. So let's start off with the S&P. So like I said earlier, we saw the S&P move up yesterday, make new all-time highs around $696,000 and try and get to that level today. Slightly kiss that level, but fell back. We see the stock closing down, or the S&P closing down about 0.2%. Yeah, congratulations to Drew. But if you take a look at the S&P, you see that I have a beautiful potential wedge pattern here forming on the S&P. Now, I did this by connecting the highs from the 12th of November through basically the all-time highs, which is yesterday. And on the bottom side, we have a nice pivot low here from the 21st of November through the bottom of the 2nd of January, making this awesome wedge pattern. And how do I trade these wedge patterns? Well, if you remember from the last time I was on this show, I'll repeat myself. You can short potentially, right? Because this is upsloping, it is bearish. You can potentially short anything in a wedge pattern, either at the top of the parallel or on the break. Let's say this comes down tomorrow, breaks. If it retraces, you kind of expect a move lower on the S&P. Pardon my poor drawing, but there are a couple key levels of support to put on here on the S&P. The first level is this wonderful gap fill down around $683. Additionally, you have another gap fill down here and a pivot low down here just around $680. Similar story here on the QQQ. On the Qs, you have the same wedge pattern forming, right? To no one's surprise, the same kind of wedge pattern forming. You see all these high pivots creating the upper side of this wedge, and the low point from, again, the 21st of November, and the bottom here around the 2nd of January for the potential bottom side of this wedge pattern. Now, again, if we see a breakdown, I'd be looking for a retrace and then maybe a move lower. You can short the Qs by entering something like the SQQQ for an ETF if you can't short at home. On the SMH, talking about the semiconductors, which have been going absolutely crazy, like Micron, and I'll cover Micron in just a little bit. Right, we had another wedge here on the SMH, and it appeared like we would see a breakout here on the SMH. We saw that the SMH attempted to break up above, failed, came back in, closed above, and was potentially putting in a topping tail on the daily time frame. And if you know your topping tails, you know that the SMH put in a topping tail today. Another bearish pattern here on the SMH, right? Also having a beautiful wedge pattern. Now, here's the key. Can the SMH continue to break down off of this topping tail? Can it continue to come down back into this wedge pattern, previous wedge pattern? Can we see a move lower? And can this upsloping trend line break? If it does, we could be in for a larger fall here on the semiconductor industries. Speaking of semiconductors, let's hop straight into Micron. And I wanted to share with you guys this awesome trend line I found. Micron has been going ballistic, right? Absolutely going crazy. I'm making new all-time highs basically every single day. Let's just take some measured move from the Liberation Day lows right here from the Liberation Day lows up until basically the highs of today, which it did make new all-time highs, a casual 476% move to the upside. Now, here's the problem with shorting things and playing things and looking for resistance at stocks at all-time highs. It's a little difficult to narrow down these levels. You don't have previous price action to give you clear levels of resistance. But for me, I found this awesome trend line here on Micron, right? Dating back to April of 2024, I took the previous all-time high of Micron here and its previous all-time high here from the 17th of June, continuing higher to here. So for me, next level of resistance on Micron, should it continue to push higher, would be about 6% higher around the 356 to 360 region, depending on where it goes. And should Micron begin to fall, I have a couple key levels that I might actually buy Micron actually for a day trade. Now, it's important to make a distinction here. I believe that Micron is overbought, overextended, and actually favors a move to the downside. But that doesn't mean I can't buy it during the day for a potential day trade, trying to make a couple $1,000s here or there like we do so often in the Apex Live Day trading room. So for me, the first level I target, let's say Micron comes down significantly, about 7 or 8% at this 312 level, which is easily conceivable this week, right? I would gladly buy it there for a potential bounce. I'd probably look for about 1-ish% there. There's another gap fill down here around 285. You also have the $300 psychological level as levels of support should Micron continue to fall. Again, this is only specifically for day trading. I wouldn't really be a buyer here on a swing trade basis, but for day trade, I definitely could see a bounce at around 312, 300, 285. On the gold chart, right, I have this beautiful kind of upsloping trend line here. I drew a parallel channel here. There aren't as many data points on the bottom side. Right? You can kind of adjust it, but it doesn't really work. I'm just drawing this to kind of show you the trend. And I have this nice upsloping trend line. Of course, we have the previous all-time high from October. We had this beautiful pullback in gold, about 11% pullback. Its lows here on the 20th of October, and it's connecting through the intraday highs yesterday and today of gold, showing a clear trend line that gold is attempting to break above, but there's clear resistance there, right? If this parallel remains true, if this trend line holds, then I believe gold could be on its way down. And you can also draw a couple more trend lines, right? And this is the great thing of having so much price action on something. There are so many key levels that you could identify as a potential shortable opportunity. If you wanted to short gold, let's say it retraces there tomorrow for a day trade or even a swing trade, right? Inching in a swing trade at the top of this upsloping trend line over here, around 4,640 could be a good level to enter gold for a short. Next one is silver. Have another nice upsloping trend line connected from the previous highs all the way back in 2019. You see I'm on the weekly chart here. The previous highs from the 20th of August all the way, and look where price is now. Let's switch to the daily chart here and see. We kind of kissed that level today. We got so close to that resistance level, about 0.5% on silver away from that level. Should silver get up there, this would be tomorrow. It'd be closer to $89.50. I definitely can see a pullback. That's where I would look to initiate a short on both the swing trade and potentially a day trade. I love this level here on silver for a potential fall. Just know that when you're shorting things at all-time highs, you got to put in a stop loss because they can continue to go higher, right? But I do think silver favors a pullback. Like, just look at this move. Absolutely ridiculous. From its lows in October, up move over 92%. This looks like a semiconductor stock. Looks like AI, as AI company. into Bitcoin. A couple interesting things to note here on Bitcoin. I have a nice upsloping parallel channel. This is basically a bear flag, classic bear flag on Bitcoin starting to form, already formed, right? We have some nice data points on the top side, creating the top end of this parallel channel, and some nice data points to the bottom side of Bitcoin. Now, listen to this. Bitcoin has been hammering on this basically $95,000 level over and over and over again. And if you think about it, right, think about it like a tea kettle or a cup of water that I'll go full screen for this, a cup of water where you're filling up the top of it. Okay, when you fill up a cup of water, it'll get taller, and then once it gets to the top, for even a little bit, it won't fall immediately. It won't fall over the sides. You kind of have a small bubble where it's just sitting there, slowly getting taller and taller, and eventually when that bubble pops, right, all the water, a bunch of water starts falling down from the sides. And I think the same thing is true about this Bitcoin chart. Even though that this is a nice bearish pattern, bear flag, if you pop above this $95,000 level, it's hard to imagine a world where this thing wouldn't pop to at least $100,000. You could, right? And someone brought this up in one of our chats earlier, talk about a potential inverse head and shoulders pattern here. I don't love it just because this armpit doesn't really connect. But let's say we have our neckline somewhere around here. What is that measured move of this, or I'll say measured move in honor of Drew? That measured move on Bitcoin would be a move up to around $105,000. You have tons of resistance up here as well. So I think that if we can get above this $95,000 level, you're going to first find resistance there, of course, at the $95,000 level. If you can break above that, we're going to test that 100 and then 105, right? Kind of coinciding, depending on when it does it, with the upper range of this Bitcoin parallel channel. To play this, you can either initiate a short on Bitcoin at the top of this parallel channel, or a break of the bottom of this parallel channel, or enter should it retrace and look for a move lower. Okay. On Ethereum, you have like a classic bearish pennant coming down move, and then kind of like a wedge pattern, classic bearish pennant favoring a move to the downside. But the thing about these wedge patterns is that they could also go higher. Let's say Bitcoin pushes up higher, gets past 95,000, pushes towards that 105. Ethereum's not going down. It's going to pop as well if Bitcoin can get above. And there's a couple key levels of resistance. First, you have this pivot high back from the 10th of December. Should Ethereum get above it, you could potentially enter a long here on a break here or a retrace. You guys know I love my retraces. And you'll look for a move about 8% higher to this $3,400 level of resistance. Should it get above that 3,450 level, the next key level will be around $3,600. You see all this price action here for resistance, approximately 12% higher. Even though this is a bearish pattern, a break to this upside of this downsloping trend line would actually be bullish. All right. Next thing I want to talk about, JP Morgan released earnings today and got crushed. And you see over here, it's only down 4%. That's big for this sector, right? Missed on both earnings and revenue continuing to fall. Have this beautiful kind of upsloping parallel channel. And should this break, I'm expecting a lot more downside. It wouldn't surprise me if this should break and we see a move down at least 10% lower here on JP Morgan, which would be massive, about to around the 280, basically under $280 to that nice gap fill over there. Speaking of the financial sector, Bank of America releases earnings tomorrow, and I'm not doing earnings trader right now, but I want to give you guys a couple of earnings levels for the Bank of America. You see we're trading an upsloping parallel channel, bearish pattern, but Earnings don't care about your patterns. They don't care about these imaginary lines, which do work. However, if it has good earnings, it's going to go up. If it has poor earnings, it's going to go down generally, right? So these are my levels of support and resistance going to earnings. Should it pop up, I'm looking at this double top level as key resistance on the Bank of America stock around $57.50. Should this break, I'm looking at this pivot low down here just under $51. And you can play it just like the rest of the parallel channels. Say it breaks, you can short on a break or a retrace and then look for additional downside. Final two charts, Visa and MasterCard, they both fell when President Trump said he was going to be capping personal credit card interest rates at 10%. Now, he can't directly do that, but he can kind of convince these companies in other ways, threatening to potentially tax them if they don't listen to him, right? A couple of different ways that he can get them to do what he wants. Visa attempted to break a key upsloping trend line today. And you guys know that I keep talking about these upsloping parallel channels, upsloping trend lines, because they are all bearish, right? If Visa can get below this, I expect further downside to at least this pivot low, around 8% lower, around this $300 level, this key level right here. Now, Visa had a nice recovery from its intraday lows, caught all the way down to basically 324, and had a nice bounce up about 1%. Pretty decent for this stock. But if Trump continues to put on pressure, I expect more downside. I actually day traded this and actually bought Visa for a long. Although, capping interest rates at 10% would be bearish for these kind of credit card companies, likelihood is it would be a while, right, until we saw that come into effect. So definitely just the news came out, big sell and nice recovery. Same thing if we take a look at MasterCard. MasterCard has a little bit of a different trend line, not quite testing that trend line as of now. Its trend line is a little bit lower, right? Down, would have to come down basically below $530. But same thing, came down, was down about 6% and had a nice bounce back up to percent, right? But this is a key trend line to watch. And if it does end up breaking, I expect further downside. I hope you guys enjoyed this show. That's it for me. My name is Lawton here with Verified Investing. Again, best wishes to Drew. Congratulations to him and his wonderful family. I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon. We'll be back tomorrow for Trading the Close. I believe Ben or Gareth will be on, and I'll be on I believe on Thursday. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye, guys.